Hello, good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to MamaLiez. There was some technical problem. Somehow my internet is not stable today at home, so I have to use my mobile internet. So today, welcome to MamaLiez. To wants to learn. This is where we call all the experts in different industries in areas of physical health, mental health, spiritual health, and financial health. And today we are having a mental health series, and we're inviting my friend from Qatar, all the way from Doha, Qatar, Dr.Nina Hafetz. Yeah, she is. Oh, I put up the wrong slide pula ni. So today, actually, we're going to put up. Today, we're going to talk about how mental health links to mental illness. So she is a clinical psychologist from School of Behavioral Science and Humanities, University of Ballarat in Australia, and also a medical journal contributor. So without any further ado, say hello to Dr. Nina Hafetz. Hi.
Hi, Assalamualaikum, Liz.
I'm so
How are
sorry. I was
you?
like, oh my God, this is crazy. My internet just gone. Right now, I'm using my mobile internet. Just when you,
Oh no. Okay, let's hope it's gonna be okay. Let's hope it's
yes, I hope
gonna.
so.
Yeah. But I also have to
It-
apologize because
Hello. Hello. Okay, I think my internet is really bad. Let me get Dr. Nina to put in again. Okay, if anyone can hear me when live, can you just say hello in the comment section? I just want to make sure whether you can still hear me, whether you can see me online right now. Okay, now Dr. Dinas is having an internet problem. If anyone can hear me from the live shows, can you just put a comment on the comment and just let me know if you can hear me. I'm just waiting for Dr. Nina to come in. Yes, you can hear Azro. Thank you, Azro. We're just waiting for Dr. Nina to come in. I had a internet problem, so is she. So I'm using my phone internet, and I'm waiting for her to using her phone internet. Okay, so thank you again for joining. Last week, I find it very, the line is not so good. Yeah, the line is not so good. I'm just waiting for her to come back, so that she can start talking and I was addressing so last week what happened was when she was talking about in general about mental health 101. So through getting knowledge from her is really revelation for me when I realized that that when we don't take care of our own mental health, during this pandemic, it's very important to look into our own mental health. And what I realized from her, what she told us, the audience, me, what happened was that, yes. So what I realized from there is that if all of us has a pre-existing condition, or us, or some of us, or not all of us. Remember when we go to the doctor and the doctor always say, hey, okay, please fill up the form and let us know what is the pre-existing condition before they address the issue, right? So some of us will have this pre-existing condition from our they will ask whether our parents has it or our sibling has it and our immediate family has any history of any kind of conditions. So it's the same in mental health. Maybe we don't know that in our DNA have this certain pre-existing condition based on genetic and all that. So if we don't take care of our mental health and when things happen, for example, like pandemic, it can trigger us. Yeah, it can trigger us. And when it triggers us and we don't take care of our mental health, it can eventually lead to mental illness. It can eventually lead to mental illness, which I didn't know that. And I really didn't know until Dr. Nina shared it with us last week. So that's why I really stress it's very important for us to really prepare ourselves, prepare ourselves in facing any kind of difficulties or what, or how we can handle our emotions. Um, for example, we get our knowledge by looking finding professionals like counselors or even oh she's back.
Okay, I am
There you
so
go.
sorry.
Ah,
I think
there
there's
you go.
so sorry. There's construction going on outside my villa, and I
Yeah.
think that it's affecting. I don't know. I'm assuming that it's affecting the connection, because the connection is usually pretty good where we are right now. So I don't know what's going on. I'm really, really, truly sorry. I apologize for that inconvenience.
It's okay. But Dr. Nina, I was just telling the audience that
Yeah.
what I discovered from you last week, that if we
Right.
don't take care of our mental health, you were
Right.
mentioning on general what's mental health, and we don't find ways and learning new tools to handle our
Right.
emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and all of us may or may not have pre-existing condition, right, from our
Correct.
genetics and DNA, and
Correct.
we don't know we do have that. Yeah, so and then when something happens, for example like a pandemic, it can
Mm-hmm.
trigger us, and if it triggers
Yes,
us and we don't address to that situation, eventually slowly without you knowing it, it can lead to a mental illness. And I
that's true.
think that happens to a lot of people. Yeah, I hear a lot of people. I know someone who didn't know that she even had bipolar until like 20
Okay.
years later, that's been diagnosed. I think she
Right.
realized,
Right.
so sometimes,
Right.
does it? Yeah, so maybe you can just first of all introduce yourself, and then maybe we
Okay.
can go on with the slides.
Sure.
For those in the audience, please say hello to us where you're tuning in from. I apologize for all the technical difficulties. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you have any questions to Dr. Nina as regard to mental health and mental illnesses, please do write on the comment and she will answer to you. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Nina.
Hi from Doha. It's morning right now. It's about 11 plus in Doha. 11:11 actually in Doha right now. So I'm streaming live with Liz from Qatar. I am a clinical psychologist, so I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. I studied in Australia for my bachelor's at Monash University, postgrad at Deakin University, and then finally went on to do my doctorate in clinical psychology. So I work with children, adolescents, and adults. So Liz has invited me because we thought that it would be a good idea to do a mental health series. So we did the first series last week, which was Mental Health 101. This time today we're gonna do and it's a two-part series for today. So we're gonna break it up into two. We're gonna talk about the link between mental health and mental illness. So eventually we'll get to mental illness, but the idea is to create what is called mental health literacy. Or we call it psychoeducation as well. So basically, it's to create awareness. It's to inform, people about what mental health is, what mental illness is, how they're different, how they are inextricably linked, right? So that's what we're doing.
I love that when you say it's mental health literacy, because basically I think that's what I'm trying to do for this MamaLiez show wants to learn. When I want to help people to have increase in their literacy in different areas like spiritual
Right.
health literacy,
Right.
financial health literacy, and then mental health literacy. So mental health.
Right.
I think that's very, very important, and physical health literacy. So
That's
how we
right.
can increase these
So
different
I
areas.
think knowledge is always key. You can gain knowledge in many different areas of your life. That's how we make better decisions. We make informed decisions that lead to a better outcome for us, right? So it could be physical health literacy, it could be mental health literacy, financial literacy, for example. So there are a number of different areas, and it's essentially the idea is that you build all of that so that you get to be the best person that you can be. Okay, so there's a lot of knowledge out there. What we're talking about, Liz has done financial series. We're going to do mental health series. So we are going to start today, Liz, if that's okay with you, with a bit of a disclaimer. So if you can put the second slide up, we're just going to make sure that, people are aware that we are sharing this for educational purposes only, not meant to diagnose and not meant for anything else besides that. Okay, nothing clinical, nothing medical. So we're going to do that. So I think I'm not getting Liz coming through. Let me see. I don't know why we're having this issue today. It's a little bit frustrating, but I think I'm not getting through to Liz now. Okay, I'm just going to quickly, excuse me, I'm just going to text her and see what's going on because she's kind of hanging now. Okay, right, I think Liz is trying to resolve this. We're still live, so I am going to maybe talk to you about, we're going to disclaim this first. So whatever you see on this show, it's not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice. If you feel that you are experiencing any of these, the best way to go about it is to go and seek professional help. Okay. And so it's meant to be educational. It's for educational purposes. It is not meant to diagnose. So I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. Like I said, you are going to relate to some of the things that I'm going to be saying. We all do at some point. And if it sounds like it's a serious concern, if it becomes a significant concern, then I am going to advise for you to seek medical help. And with the internet right now, you can pretty much Google anything. There's a lot of information out there. If you are in your country, wherever you are, in Malaysia, I know there is in Qatar, I think there is a strong initiative, towards mental health awareness. They have a mental health campaign that they've just started right now. So yeah, so that's that's what I'm gonna say to you right now. I think today is the most frustrating session we've had, only because Liz has had an issue with her internet. You're back, Liz? Okay. So I heard her a bit just now, but I can't see her. Let's see if she's gonna be okay. I'm sure she is. It's just the internet router that's not okay. Okay. All right. So we're not hearing anything much from this at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I am going to proceed with what should be the third slide that I was hoping this would show us. But I'm going to just share that with you right now. So before we talk about mental health, mental illness, we need to understand what the definition of that is. Okay, so most things have a definition. It's a way of explaining to you what it essentially means. There are a lot of ways of explaining it, but one of the ways of explaining mental health is it's a state of well-being. An individual realizes his or her own abilities. They can cope with normal stresses of life. They can work productively and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. And this is a definition by the World Health Organization, WHO. So essentially, if you're in good mental health, you are basically functioning to your optimum level. Okay, so you are able to do things for yourself. You're able to do things for others. You're able to work productively. You're able to contribute. You are in relatively good physical health. You're watching your diet. So you're getting enough sleep. You're eating nutritious food. You are handling your stress as well. So I'm not going to say that, to be in optimum mental health, you don't have any stresses. No, stresses are going to happen. They're going to hit you at different times in many different ways. The idea is that you have buffers. So buffers, like you have a strong support network. You have, access to help if you need to. You have, you practice good health. You practice good physical health. You practice good dieting. You are able to be productive. You reach your goals. So that's essentially what mental health is. So are you back, Liz? Because I think
Yes, I'm back.
Are you
Sorry.
back now?
Yep. Now I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay, so which slide?
Okay, so let's
What
hope.
disclaimer already? You have done the disclaimer?
Okay, all right. So that's a disclaimer. So let's just put that first, and we've gone through that already. And so if Liz is listening, we need to go to the third slide. If you are able to do that for us.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, Liz. Okay. So that's mental health. What's the difference between mental health and mental illness? Now, mental illness, this is a definition according to the American Psychiatric Association. Mental illnesses are health conditions. So pay attention to that word, involving changes. Again, that word change in emotion, thinking, or behavior. It could be a combination of these. They are associated with distress and or problems functioning in social, work, or family activities. So essentially, it is the opposite of what mental health is. So when you're experiencing mental illness, you see significant changes in a person's functioning, and the changes are usually towards the negative. So they are unable to turn up for work. They have, destructive social relationships. They have issues within the family. They are unable to reach their goals. They're unable basically to be the best version of themselves. But we're also talking about mental illness where, it's to the point where it can get to the point where they're not even aware that it's happening, right? So they can't tell, but people around them can tell, because you see a decline in pretty much all areas of life, personal hygiene, sleeping, diet, like I said, work and family. Okay, so let's go to slide 4, which is types of mental illnesses. Right. So, so there's a lot of mental illnesses, about 300 or more of them, almost 300. So the DSM-5 is the book that mental health professionals will use to diagnose mental health disorders. Now they keep revising it because new research come into play. They understand things more, or they found a different way of looking at it, new ways of looking at it. So this right now is the latest edition, which is DSM-5. Now let's talk about the main groups of mental disorders. I'm going to go through them rather quickly, because when we go into future mental health series, we might actually break them down in a lot more detail. And that is if any of you are interested, if you all are interested, we can definitely do that. It's something definitely that Liz has to decide she wants to do. It's her show. But if she is happy to do that, then I'm happy to collaborate with her. Okay. So main groups of mental disorders, you have anxiety. So I think people are very aware of the word anxiety. People are aware of the word anxiety disorder. So one example of that is GAD, which is generalized anxiety disorder, meaning that they have anxiety in pretty much every area of life across many different things. Then you have eating disorders that they're not in particular order. You have eating disorders, anorexia or bulimia. For example, you have mood disorders, which includes depression and bipolar. You have personality disorders, which include borderline personality disorder. You have psychotic disorders, for example, schizophrenia. You have substance abuse disorders, for example, drug addictions. And then you have trauma-related disorders, for example, PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. So they have, overlap of treatment. They have, they're grouped according to, based on DSM-5, according to the symptoms. They're looking, when you were diagnosing, we're looking at intensity, frequency, severity, duration, and all of that, okay? So I'm not gonna go so much into that because I think at some point we're gonna do that with Liz, if it's something that she wants to do. What we're gonna do is we're gonna also look at mental health statistics. Okay, this is to give you an idea of how it affects people. Yes, Liz? If you can hear me, could you put up slide 5, if that's okay? So essentially, mental health affects everyone around the world. So this is based on data of 2018. So you look at the numbers there, it's a lot of people. Anxiety affects 284 million people as of 2018. Depression affects 264 million people. Alcohol use disorder, the substance abuse disorder, 107 million people. Drug use disorder, 71 million people. Bipolar, 46 million people. Schizophrenia, 20 million. Eating disorders, 16 million worldwide. That's a huge number. It has a lot of impact on many areas of life. It has economic impacts as well. And it places a burden on the health system as well. Okay, so if you look at those numbers, that's 2018. Now, if we review that number, after COVID, I can assure you that the number would be a lot higher. And we're gonna maybe discuss that a little bit or touch a little bit on that. We touched a little bit on that last week. So we're gonna continue with slide 6. If Liz can maybe, if you're listening, Liz, can you go on to slide 6 for me, please? So essentially, if you look at mental health statistics worldwide, people use mental health and mental illness kind of interchangeably sometimes, mental well-being as well. So the reason for the definition earlier on was because you then will be able to tell the difference between mental health and then mental illness. So mental illness is, it's clinical. It is devastating, the effect that it has on individuals. It has impact on the person, the family, and then the society, the community at large. And then obviously, globally, it has effect as well. Okay, I'm not sure if Liz can still hear us, if she's online. Liz, can you move on to slide 6 for us, please? I assure you, this is not how it usually goes. Usually, the internet is fine. I think the internet's just not cooperating with us today. Usually we have quite a lot of banter going back and forth. Liz is a really great host. It's just unfortunate today that the internet is giving her a hard time. So I don't know how we're gonna fix that. I'm pretty sure she's trying her best to do that. So if any of you are watching, thank you for being patient with us, and thank you for staying on and just waiting for the next slide. Okay, Liz, can you hear me? I'm gonna try and text her and see if she can.
Sorry. I'm
It's
out of
okay.
it. I
Okay,
think
so I can hear you. That's good.
I
Yes.
think today is about handling stress. How I can handle stress, right?
Well, yeah, then that's the thing, though. I
It's
think
about
that's a
mental.
really that's a good point because things are not always going to work the way you expect them to work, and then you try your best to fix it. Obviously, we have great listeners. I'm sure they're very patient right now, just waiting for us to, fix the issue. We also have to believe that at some point we're gonna resolve it, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's going to work out, and hopefully it will. And if it doesn't, we can always do this show again, and that's fine. That's opportunities always, all the time. There are always options. There are always options.
Thank you everyone for being patient today. I don't know why, but I think it's really got to do about handling stress, and that's why God asking me to test my stress. uh, to get the
Still
anxiety
great, no matter how
disorder.
prepared you were, no matter how, at this point you've had so many shows on already, so you've had, it's experience. But if the universe decides not to cooperate, this is
Okay,
what you get.
audience, everyone who's listening to this, how do you handle your stress when you're doing your meeting, right? You're doing your meeting, and then your internet connection just gone. So how do you handle it? Do you do it
Yeah,
calmly?
let's see.
You
Let's
you
let's
you meditate? Or share with me. How do you handle your stress if your internet is not working? You just on and off, and it's been interrupted. Or maybe you're just doing your meeting and you have your kids around you, behind you, or it's not, you have always some interaction. Do share with us, how do you handle your stress when you're at home? Okay, now we are working from home, right? Share with us how you settle it. Okay, continue, Dr. Nina. Where were we?
Okay.
Just now.
No
No,
worries.
I
No
want,
worries, Liz.
Dr. Nina,
Yeah.
just now you were saying, right, these numbers, right? But
Yes.
so are you saying most people, uh, the top two, right? Top two would be anxiety,
Yes.
depression.
Yes.
Is this
Yeah.
across the same all over the world? Is the same like in Malaysia also, or does it?
Yes.
Do
Yes.
you think that
Yes.
would be the top two as
It's
well?
the anxiety and depression are the top two most prevalent mental illness across the world.
Okay.
So
So, but
it's,
how
yeah.
do we know whether we have anxiety or not?
Okay. So we're gonna, maybe go into this and then go back to the slides. But we're jumping ahead, and I think that's going to be in the, part of that is going to be in here. But first of all, in order for you to be diagnosed with anxiety disorders or depression, right, depressive disorders, which is part of a mood disorder, there's a process. And that's a process that I'm going to elaborate later on in the second part of this series. And then we're going to look into that process. We're going to look at what we usually as mental health professionals look for when a person present themselves to us, right? So again, you then refer to DSM-5, which was in the earlier slide. I talked about DSM-5 as a diagnostic manual. We refer to that, and usually, we all experience anxiety and we all have low moods at some point in our lives, in relation to things that are going on around us, in relation to events, in relation to how we're feeling. Okay. However, that doesn't mean that you have anxiety disorders or depressive disorders. In order to give you that's a clinical diagnosis. In order to give you a clinical diagnosis, there are things that we go through with you. There are things, so it's a lot of investigation. It's a lot of finding out. There are questionnaires out there. For example, the Beck Anxiety Inventory, the Beck Depression Depression Inventory, the BDI and BAI. So you know how you can kind of go, oh, do I have anxiety? And you go online and then you do tests and questionnaires, and they ask you questions like, how often, how frequent do you worry about things, or how frequent do you experience low moods? Have you lost how, they talk about your sleep, they talk about, your appetite. So the internet ones kind of give you a bit of an idea, but eventually you'll still need to see a mental health professional because they're trained to be able to help you go through that and kind of go, okay, well, it is borderline, it is a clinical level, from what you're experiencing. So we talk about changes in their lives, things that are not working well for them. So we can, like I said, we can experience that. And I'm going to go through that in the second part where we actually go through that more in detail.
But before that we go on, I just want to know what are the example, and what are the top 4 or 5 signs that you may need to seek help for anxiety or depression. What are the top 5 signs that
I'm going to get through that in slide 7 because that's going to give you a bit of an idea. That's going to give you a bit of an idea. Okay, but we're going to go through slide 6. We're going to go 6 first. Okay.
You go slide 4?
So, this is slide 6, I think. Pretty sure it's slide 6. Is it? Is it 4 for you?
4, yeah.
Okay.
Is it 4? Oh, sorry, 4.
Sure it's 6.
Oh, this one?
Yeah. Nope. We're going to the one that you showed just previously. Yep. No. Keep going forward.
Okay, sorry, 6.
Yeah, that's 6. Okay.
Yeah, 6. Yeah.
So what you're looking for is, see what it says there is that mental illness and then mental health diagnosis equals symptoms that result from a combination of factors. So in order for you to be diagnosed with a mental illness, okay, we are looking at we're not looking necessarily at all of that in that sense, but we're looking at all these factors. So these are all the factors that can actually affect your mental health state. Okay, so I'm going to go on and talk later on in the second part about etiology. Etiology basically is just a fancy word that we use, but it's actually causes or factors that contribute to mental illness. So if you go through that, starting with the darkest color, which is that dark blue, you look at, for example, bacterial infection, chronic negative self-talk, brain injury, exposure to molds, environmental factors. You're looking at physiological factors, pregnancy, birth complications, hormonal imbalance. You're looking at lifestyle, diet lacking in nutritional value, lack of sleep. You're looking at psychological factors, which are neglect, abuse, a chaotic home environment, social isolation, bereavement and loss. You've lost somebody. And I think with COVID now, a lot of people are dying, and there's a lot of bereavement and loss, more than the usual estimate. And then you have stigma, you have homelessness, job loss, poverty, and then you also have neurological conditions, physical diseases, vitamin deficiency, which is sort of more of a physiological factor. Okay, so all of this, pay attention. So all of this, you may not have all of them, you may not experience every single one of them, but if you have enough and they are at a level that is serious enough, it can affect you and it can tip the scale, right? Okay, so the slide 7 is the one that is going to answer your question earlier, Liz. So if you go to slide 7, which is the next slide. Yeah. I'm really sorry for the drilling noises if you're hearing this, because the construction is still going on. I didn't know that was going to happen, so I apologize for that. Okay, so last week when we did the Mental Health 101, I presented a very simple mental health continuum. And if you remember, it was green this side, it was red this side, and then it was basically a big long arrow, with sort of a tip at both sides, okay? There wasn't a lot of information and explanation at that time, but it was just to provide a visual of how we can move back and forth between that continuum, okay?
Right.
So depending on what's going on in your life, depending on all these other factors, you can be at any part of that at any time. Now, if you are...
Yeah.
Okay, some people say really trigger the patience limit.
Some really trigger patience limit when internet have issue during meetings. So what to do? Just proceed with basic troubleshooting. Yeah, correct. That's
true. Right? You make the best. You make the best of the situation, right? Okay. Right. So let's look at the green one. Your question was, okay, so how do we tell? How do you tell? What do we look for? So as a mental health professional, right? So if you were healthy, okay, if you go down, you look at mood, right? So normal mood fluctuations, you might be a little bit irritable, it doesn't last for very long. You might be annoyed you're in traffic, you might be annoyed because you're trying to push a trolley and the wheels are not working properly and stuff. But there are inconveniences that you're able to overcome pretty quickly, right? And then you're generally calm. And then your attitude, there's a good sense of humor. You are in control of things. You have a positive attitude. And then, when you look at sleep, you have normal sleep patterns, very little sleep difficulties, right? We all experience sleep difficulties sometimes, but relatively maybe minor, mild, and maybe not as frequent, maybe not as severe, okay? Now, look at physical health. So then good energy levels, you're physically well, you are able to indulge in physical activities, and then you are socially active as well. You do lots of things outside of the home, inside of the home, things that keep you busy, but things that are good for you. And then if you look at habits, there's no substance abuse concerns, no alcohol abuse, no gambling and such. Okay, so if you keep going to the right, you see the colors, from yellow to orange to red, okay?
Yeah.
If you go into the orange and the red, right, that's when it starts to become clinical. Okay, clinical meaning that it's now become quite serious. And you can see that when you're in the green and the yellow, you may not need professional care, you may need to, help, friends or family figure out what's going on. But to a certain extent, you are still able to control it. You're still able to live a relatively, healthy life, okay, mentally healthy life, right? Now,
So, but what if they don't get help and then they continue on? It will eventually go to orange and then to red.
Yes. So if you don't, so at green, you're fine, you're great. You just have to maintain that momentum, right? But then again, there are things that you can't control. You're good at your job, you enjoy your job, and suddenly because of COVID, you lose your job.
Right.
Right. So there are factors that are out of your control. But if you are relatively, and it is obviously devastating to lose a job, but some people, and you've seen reports, you've seen news, this person was a pilot, lost his job, and then started a burger stand, right? So if you have other factors going good for you, you have support, maybe you have a good attitude, you're in relatively good health and all that, you're able to adapt to the changes that are happening in your life. So yes, losing a job is a huge inconvenience, but there are things that people can do, and they can still sort of buffer themselves against that effect, and not, make them tip over the edge. Okay, but if you don't, react to those things that is in yellow, if you don't handle them, then you're going to go into orange and red. Okay, so we're going to spend a bit of time talking about this because you'll see that at that point, you may actually need professional care. Okay, now.
So I just want to stress, maybe like for a lot of people out there,
Yeah.
like for me, before I even go to orange or red, yeah, and then in order for me to maintain in green,
Yeah.
if I do it on my own, probably I wouldn't have the skills or knowledge to do it, and that's why
Right.
for me to have a healthier lifestyle in terms of physical health or mental health, I always go to those who are experts who can help me to able to maintain this kind of healthy mindset, healthy
Sure.
physical health. Yeah. So like I have here on watching us together now is Andreas. He's NLP coach. So I think
Yeah.
going with people like Andreas, NLP coach, who able to teach us on how to handle the stress, whenever we get into the trigger point.
Right.
So it able us to maintain on the green area and the yellow.
Yes.
as well, yeah, able to manage it instead before it goes to orange and red. A lot of people, I think, when they don't see the importance of
Mhm.
getting tools and learning knowledge, getting knowledge on how to able to maintain it, that's when they can quickly escalate to the red part. If I'm not,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
So what you're talking about is what we
yeah,
mentioned earlier, which was mental health literacy,
yeah,
right? So you essentially, have knowledge about, what's important to keep you on sort of that balanced scale,
right,
right? Now, there might be something that would be sort of taught at school. So, for example, I'm sure a lot of schools do that. My kids at school here talk about learning. They learn about healthy eating. They learn about what should go on their plate. They learn about the importance of physical activity.
yeah,
Parents are reminded to make sure that the kids go to bed on time, to make sure that the kids get the appropriate amount of sleep consistent with their developmental ages. So for example, a 3 to 5 year old may need between 10 to 12 hours of sleep. It's important to know that, because I have come across parents who may not realize the importance of that in a child, and so the children, a 3 year old is sleeping at 12 midnight,
yeah,
and
yeah,
getting up by 7 because they have to go to nursery. But what I said just now, between 3 and 5, for example, you're sleeping between 10 to 12 hours, and then you repeat that cycle again when you become a teenager, because they're huge growth periods, right? When they go through sort of significant growth periods. Okay. So the sleep is there to help them. But if you don't know that, if you're unaware of that, then you can't enforce it, can you? You're not able to do that with your kids. And so you see behavioral problems, you see temper tantrums, you see difficulty focusing, concentrating, they're sleepy in class, they are irritable, and then they fall asleep at any time. They're coming back from school in the car, they fall asleep at any time. They're in a vehicle, for example, they fall asleep because the sleep cycle, the circadian rhythm, is disrupted, right?
mm,
So
yeah,
you talked about just now of mental health literacy, meaning you need to know that, but not everybody does. And so that's the reason why there has to be mental health awareness out there. I wish that schools would teach mental health as a component, as a syllabus, really focusing on all that, because it's really important for you to be able to achieve that. You have to have knowledge first,
yeah,
right? If you don't have knowledge of that, you're not going to be able to carry that out because you simply don't know. And the parents
right,
might, obviously love their kids and care for their kids, but actually not realize. You'll be surprised to learn how many people I've come across who simply actually don't realize how important good sleep and a good amount of sleep is for their kids. Like, they
mm,
actually have no idea.
yeah,
Not to mention, again, exposure to electronics and everything. They actually have no idea. Actually have no idea. And so simply, as much as they are well-meaning for the kids, they want the kids to grow up well and healthy and everything and stuff, they're missing out on one very, very key component in achieving good mental health. And it starts from when you're in the womb, not
yeah,
from when, you're an adult. It starts from there.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And then at that time, it's your parents' responsibility. And then as you go older, as you understand things more, you take more responsibility. When children know the health benefits of eating vegetables, they know the health benefits of doing physical activity, recreational activity, to have hobby, to have interests, to go out and socialize. All of that need to be instilled from a very young age. So when you're younger, your parents help you, the school may help you in some ways. But as you get older, you start taking responsibility for that, right? So that's hugely important. So if you go back to answer your question about, if you go back to slide 7, okay, so we're going to linger a little bit on this. Like you said, so once you go into the orange and the red,
mm,
that's when you may actually need professional care. Now, um, a lot of the times, individuals would actually go through their primary care physician or their general practitioner. Okay, they go see a general doctor and they might say something about, I'm not getting enough sleep, I can't fall asleep. I fall asleep and then I wake up in the middle of the night and then I can't fall asleep again. Or, I'm sleeping more than usual, I'm sleeping a lot less than usual, and all of that. And so, just jumping ahead here, the doctor will carry out physical examination. They may look at, usually we do investigate, or the doctors do investigate the physical causes first. Right. Okay. And then so they go through all of that. They may order lab tests for you to look at, your functioning from the inside. But usually what people will do is they will go through their primary care physician or their general practitioner. And then eventually, once all of that is gone, they've gone through all of that, you actually realize, well, there's nothing wrong with you. We've done a endoscopy, colonoscopy, we've done, a CAT scan, MRI. We're not seeing anything that is physically of concern. So then the effect, which is probably psychological, and that's where you get referrals going into mental health professionals like psychiatrists, psychiatric nurses, counselors, psychiatric counselors, and then of course psychologists. Okay. Right. Now, focus on again the orange and the red. At this point, if you're healthy, your mood is kind of, normal mood fluctuations. You go kind of a bit up and down throughout the day, but generally you're calm. Okay. But once you get into orange and red, you have anger, and then with the red one, you have anger outbursts. So obviously that's more severe. And then you have aggression. So you may have anxiety, and then you may have excessive anxiety or panic attacks when you are in the red. Okay. And then, you're looking at attitude, a negative attitude, poor performance, poor concentration. So you can tell that they are now experiencing, dysfunction, essentially. Right. Dysfunction. You're unable to function at your optimum level, right? So that is what we would look for when we are doing a clinical interview with you. So we're looking at all of those factors. We're asking about appetite. We're asking about sleep. We're asking about, your social network. We're asking about your functioning at work. And so that is essentially what we look for. Okay, so Liz, if you can hear me, I think we're kind of hanging a bit now again. There's the internet issue for Liz. And on her behalf, I apologize, but we're gonna try and go to slide 7 again, Liz, if you're listening. Let's see if she's listening. Okay, I think she is out now. She's going to come back in again. So eventually, Liz is going to bring up the slide, which is the mental health continuum. Essentially, what Liz wanted to point out, I think her question was, well, how can you tell? How can you tell that I've crossed over into where I need professional care? And this is a really good graphic, visual to tell you. So you're looking at habits. For example, you're drinking more now. You are now, maybe you have a gumming addiction. You can't stop, and then, your activity, you're no longer, you avoid people, you withdraw. When you usually would go out and meet people, you're no longer doing that. You are basically socially shutting down. You're not answering your phone, for example. So you're actually shutting down any kind of social contact. Okay. And then you look at physical health, you have aches and pains, and you have fatigue. You have now constant fatigue. You now have physical illnesses on top of that. So there is a very strong link. It is kind of a vicious cycle between your mental health and then your physical health. They kind of, it's sort of a chicken and an egg situation. Okay. And then again, if you're in that red one, you have difficulty falling asleep. You're experiencing significant sleep difficulties. Okay. So that's how you can tell. That's how you can tell.
Okay. For example, like anxiety disorder, right? Yeah. What are the stop signs that can say that, like you said, one of it is anger outbursts, right?
Right.
And then what are the top signs that shows that you might have anxiety or disorder, for example?
Okay. So if you're talking just about signs and symptoms of anxiety, I think at some point we'll go into that in more detail. But essentially, anxiety is when you experience a lot of worry and feelings of nervousness. So you worry about what people think of you. You worry about what others, might do to you. You worry about general things. You worry about you get anxious in situations maybe a lot faster. You have a stronger reaction to your situation. It affects your sleep. You may have physical symptoms, so you may have muscle tension, a lot more tension. So that's where the physical aches and pains may come from. You may have heart palpitations. You may have sweating. You may have shaking. You may experience, again, like I said, a lot of stress. You may experience mood disturbances. So anxiety. So people often think, oh, you're anxious, then you're just a bit of a worry warrior, But anxiety can also present itself or manifest itself in other types of emotional responses, like anger. Right. So a good example might be, when you're going to the airport. Now, a little bit of anxiety is healthy because we want to get there on time. We don't want to miss our plane. You kind of want to make it to the airport in good time. So basically what you do, if you work backwards, you prepare yourself, you work out your journey, how long that's going to take, you work out what time you need to be there and all that. So then you don't start getting worried about how that things could go wrong and you're going to miss your plane. Now, you also find that the anxiety is not just, let's do this, let's gotta move on because we're now going to, I don't want to miss our plane. No, you're going to actually shout and scream at, your family members. You're going to get upset because traffic is moving too slowly. You're going to just shout at the kids because the kids are making too much noise, and then you experience kind of a sensory overload. You start feeling overwhelmed. And then your heart is racing. It's beating fast. Sometimes people hyperventilate because essentially you are in a situation of panic.
So that means that's not normal?
Well, it's
you see
look,
that especially
that's
when
the
the
thing.
parents are reacting that way, when they get
Right.
angry.
So a lot of again, it's a combination of factors. It's personality, it's past experience. If you've ever missed a plane, then the next time around you're going to feel more anxious, right? However, when you talk about an anxiety disorder, the anxiety disorder does not, if it's clinical, it does not leave you. So once you get to the airport, you're fine, you're on your plane, the anxiety goes away.
Right.
Okay, so you may have a stronger reaction to the situation trying to get to the airport on time, but that is a situational thing. It happens that one time, and then once you go back to, once you're settled down in the plane and all of that, they serve you your drink and so on and so forth, you start getting a little bit more relaxed, and that anxiety goes away. You're now no longer affected by it. Your mood is back to being sort of relatively calm. You are able to now interact better with people around you and your kids. Your muscles have relaxed. You're not as tense. So that wouldn't be necessarily an anxiety disorder, right? That's why I said there's that line between what is non-clinical and then how it goes into clinical. So a person with anxiety disorder, for example, may feel anxiety across all areas of their lives at all times, pretty much most of the time. Every single thing causes them anxiety. And then it can get to the point where it gets too much and they just go, you know what, maybe just let's not go. Right. So instead of going, okay, let's just try our best and having a healthy outlook, a positive outlook, they just go, okay, let's just not go, because the anxiety gets too much. And then it's very uncomfortable. Right. Nobody likes feeling anxiety. Right. Nobody likes feeling uncomfortable. And so then what we see is avoidance. So they go, okay, let's just not do it then, because it's causing me a lot of anxiety. And in anxiety, what they often ask is, what if we miss the plane? What if there's something wrong with, luggage weight? What if oh my God, what if we left our passport at home? What if our passports are expired? What if things go wrong on the plane? What if we miss our connecting flight? So they can't relax.
Okay, so if we know of people who are somehow have this kind of signs, Yeah. How do we help them?
Approach them
How do
and
we,
how do you bring that up with them?
How do
So,
knowing that I know what you just shared with us, those are the signs. Okay. So then we can go around, oh, this person possibly having this kind of signs, So how
right.
do we um
So it's not easy. I can tell you that it's not
yeah,
easy. Um,
we need to get
uh,
help. How do we ask, okay, maybe you need some help, Because some people, I'm not crazy. Is this normal? A lot of people in Malaysia, especially parents, parents like me also. Sometimes they go,
yeah,
yeah,
right.
it can happen, and sometimes you
Well,
go, oh,
yeah,
it's
but
normal,
that's,
yeah.
and that's kind of it's not easy. Because again, the moment you talk to this person and say, "Oh, excuse me, but I think you have anxiety, and I think you need professional help." Most
Yeah.
people have a negative reaction to that,
Yes. So
right? A
how do
very
we
negative
avoid that?
reaction
So how do we
to that.
avoid that?
It's actually not easy. It's actually not easy. That's why I said
Yeah.
a lot of that, has to come from the individual themselves. If they are old enough, if they're children, that's different because they would be under your care, and you may make that decision for them to seek help on their behalf. But if you're old enough, then that has to come out of your own volition. That means you have to want to do that yourself. Now, how do you know that you need it or not? Then that's mental health literacy. Now you need to kind of learn, okay, well, you know what? And then also think to yourself, this is not working out for me. I avoid going out now because I have social anxiety. I don't want to meet people. Or when I do meet people, because I love meeting people, but when I do meet them, I overthink, I overanalyze every single thing that they say. That causes me a lot of stress. And then I'm so sensitive to every single thing that they say.
Okay.
Right. And so people, right, so a LinkedIn user was saying, they've worked with people who had social anxiety, never going anywhere, and that's true. It's true. What they do is they just go so much they actually avoid it. But sometimes, loved ones, if you have good communication and if you
Right.
mean well, you can maybe not go straight to, I think you need professional help. You
Right.
can go, I can see that this is affecting you every single time you do this. This affects you. I see that in your body. I see that in your facial expression. I hear it in your voice. And then you come home and you're exhausted from going out because you're trying so hard to control and keep that anxiety under check. So you might kind of say, maybe, do you want to go see someone? I'll come with you. Do you want to do something about it? Right? It's getting them to start thinking about it and telling them, you know what, you can have a better quality of life. You deserve a better quality of life. Right? So let's talk about this. Let's discuss this. Let's do something. So you may start with things that you may do at home. For example, you may increase, you may go and do yoga. You may do meditation.
Yeah.
For those who are religious, it may be, zikr, it may be prayers, it may be reading the Quran. So you essentially try and guide them and help them and kind of go, let's do something together. That's, I want to see you relax. I want to see you not be stressed all the time. You may start with doing that first. And then most of the time they go, you're right, this isn't a way to live. This isn't, this is stressful. Talking about ideal situations, right? But you also get where now by bringing up the idea of seeing a mental health professional, you have actually maybe contributed to an increase in their anxiety, and they go, oh my God, now somebody professional is now going to analyze me, is going to make judgments about what I'm going through. Now I'm starting to worry about this, so now I have another thing on my plate now, and with everything else that's going on. So you got to be careful with that. So you can help by doing things that, by making sure they're getting enough rest, by making sure they're doing recreational activities. You may start, if social anxiety is a thing for you, one of the things is, okay, so if you really still do enjoy it, do that, but maybe have a limit and go, okay, so just tell your friends, I can only stay for 45 minutes or I can only stay for an hour, because that helps you to increase your tolerance over time. So you'll have limits, and then you go, okay, I'll go meet with them, but I'll excuse myself after 45 minutes. How did that feel for you? Do you think we can add 5 minutes more next time? Because they still enjoy it. There are aspects that they still enjoy, but then on the flip side, it's also causing them a lot of anxiety. So at the end, if it gets too much and there's nothing to kind of mediate that and modulate that, they just go, okay, you know what? Let's just not do this. And then what you get is social isolation. So I am going to be talking about that as well. We have a couple of slides more to go before we're done for today. So what we're going to do is I'm going to move on to the next slide.
Actually, this is Marisa Kubina. She said, my son is like that. Maybe just you could say, I don't know how, like you said, how they can help people who may have that kind of tendencies, that guide them towards a situation where they go into something that they might be more comfortable with and reduce the anxiety. Is that what you mean? Some activities together?
Yeah, and part of that is also changing the way they think about things. Teaching them a different way of looking at things, different way of perceiving things. So I'll give you an example. It may not be a clinical anxiety, but when my eldest was quite young, we were already living in Qatar. He would have been about maybe 3 or 4. Whenever we were going to someone's house, he would be a little bit worried about going to someone's house. What are we going to do there? How long are we going to stay there for? And I can tell that he was a little bit worried. He's fine now. But what I did with him was I recognized that maybe that was a little bit of an anxiety, because you're a small child, you're in a new place. We moved when he was 2. And he doesn't know these people. He doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know what they're going to say to him. He doesn't know what's going to happen. So it turned out that it was a birthday party. So we had a chat in the car, and I said to him, well, okay, we're going to a birthday party. So I told him that was where we were going. We told him we're going to this person's place. And I said to him, okay, what do you think a birthday party looks like? Right? So he might say, oh, you might have a cake. I said, yep. Most likely. Maybe you'll have balloons. If it's a child's birthday party, they're going to be other kids, right? And then he started thinking about, oh, they might serve, some food. And I said, well, they probably will. And they might be games. So we're describing what's happening, what he could go into, right? And so now he has a bit of an idea of what kind of to expect. And then I said, okay. And then I said, so when we go there, okay, let's kind of make some guesses here. I think the balloons are going to be yellow. And he goes, well, I think they're going to be green. Okay. And I'm going, okay. I think the cake is going to be a round cake. And he was like, well, I think it's going to be rectangular. I said, okay, well, we'll see what, and who's right when we get there. So now his concern now is he wants to see whether I'm right or he's right. Right? He wants to see so he's no longer as concerned about, what's going to happen there and all that stuff. So, the focus is redirected onto one thing that he can control, so he can go, oh, you lost mommy because it's green. They're not yellow balloons. And I go, oh, okay, maybe I'll be right next time. The other thing as well, I said to him, was that when you go to someone's house and you meet the host, this is what you're going to do. You're going to say hi. You're going to greet them. You are going to introduce yourself. And then at some point, look around you and then find something that you really like. It could be a chair. It could be a lamp. It could be a table. It could be some kind of decoration. And then compliment the host on it. Now, what happens there is that he is now creating a social interaction where he's getting positive reaction from another person, right? So the host goes, oh, you're so cute. That's so cute. You said, oh, I thought yes, I do love that lamp too. It is a beautiful lamp, isn't it? And so he's getting a positive social reaction from a person, okay? And so he goes, oh, I can do this. This is kind of okay. This is kind of nice. So we did that a couple of times talking about that and stuff. And then, at one point he kind of just went, oh, okay, it's a birthday party. Yep, I know what to do now, because it turned into a positive experience for him.
Right.
Game with me, and then we're talking about what you could see, what might be there, and then sometimes it's like, oh my god, there's a bear mascot, or like, you know, the decoration, it's all dinosaur, and then, you know, he focuses on those things. And then one of the things that reduce anxiety, one of the things that you kind of help a person who have a lot of anxiety is you get them to focus on things around them in their environment. Okay, so you get to focus on things that they can see. So name 5 things that you can see. You will name 4 things that you can touch, maybe 3 things that you can smell, 2 things that you can taste, for example. So what I just did with my son was kind of essentially that. He's looking at his environment, one thing that you could do, one thing that you could, you could touch, one thing that you, so he's identifying that. So instead of focusing on how he's feeling, he's now focusing on his external environment.
Okay, so can we do the same method for an adult?
Yes. Yes, you can actually, you can actually do that, because you're talking about expectation. So anxiety is, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's going to happen. And then most likely, if you have negative thoughts, what's going to happen is usually negative. And then it becomes really scary. And then now you're reacting to an imaginary situation in your head about what's going to happen. You don't even know if that's going to happen. It's like going into a party and go, what if they don't like me? And I go, well, what if they do? What's not to like about you? Right? So we shift that, because it's what we call ANTS, which is automatic negative thoughts. It just pops in. Now,
automatic negative thoughts. Oh, I like that.
Without going to detail, you can also have, of course, your past experience was you had walked into a birthday party, you didn't realize that was going to be, I don't know, a zombie theme, and you were scared out of your wits. So the next time you go to a birthday party, you think you're going to be scared again. Right. So that is us looking at past experience as well, and what that did to you. So social anxiety could have also had a time when they had an embarrassing situation in the past and people laughed at them and it was significant enough for them to remember. Or it could be a situation of bullying, for example. Right. And so then they form those thoughts and they carry through with those thoughts. And then so now they're thinking every situation they're going to be finding themselves in is going to be the same as what they experienced in the past, which is not true, but that's, the body goes, okay, you know what, that happened to us. We're not going to let that happen to us again. So we're going to be prepared. But then, then they go to the extreme and then just go, okay, you know what, let's just not go. Let's just not go because that's too scary. Okay.
So
can we move on? Yeah.
I see. Okay. So he was only close to the family, just come out to eat and doesn't want to socialize. So what?
So family would probably be very safe to him, and that's why he thinks, okay, well, I know you, I can predict what you're going to do, what you're going to say. I feel safe with you, so that's all. So that, in that sense, then if it gets to the point where he's not coming out at all, but he's only coming out of the room to eat, then what you want to do is you want to seek professional help. If it gets to the point, because even if you're not a professional and you're just hearing that, that's not, that's not normal. There's something not right somewhere, right? So if it gets to the point, most people can actually tell. And that's how sometimes family members going, okay, this is not this is not usual. And I've noticed this for the last 6 months, sometimes they kind of lose weight, they have skin breakouts and all that, because it's a response, it's a stress response to their environment or to their situation, which brings us to slide 8.
Okay, we go to slide 8.
Yeah.
Slide 8, yeah.
Okay, so we talked about the effects just now. If you remember slide 6, it was this circle and it was all these factors that can result or that can contribute to an imbalance in your mental health, right? And cause you obviously clinical concern and mental illness. So if you look at just the effects of stress on the body, okay, so stressful environment, stressful work environment, stressful school environment, stressful home environment. Okay, you look at that and you can see, you are going to be experiencing mood issues, There's anger, there's depression, there's irritability, there's lack of energy, concentration problems, sleeping issues, headaches, mental issues like anxiety disorders and panic attacks, right? Not to mention everything else that comes with it. Okay. So that's the effect of stress. And that's one of the things that can contribute to an imbalance in your mental health. That's how serious stress affects the body. And that's why we're talking about the link between mental health and mental illness, is that this is, again, mental health literacy. You need to be aware of the effects of stress on the body so that you can modulate the effect of stress on the body so it doesn't get to the point where you then tip over into clinical concerns, right? Mental illness. Right. So, and there's programs on stress management and all that. That's the reason why it's there. It's because it's so important, because it eventually affects, physical health as well, lower bone density, loss of libido, stomach cramps, reflux, nausea, and then it compromises your immune system. Right. So see that. So if you're aware of it, then you can maybe have more control over it. You can do more, right? You can learn to modulate it, again, like I said, Google it, you don't even have to Google it. Sometimes, if you're on social media, people are doing, there are a lot of mental health professionals, qualified mental health professionals that are doing TikTok, they're doing, Instagram reels, and stuff on Facebook. They're putting it out there, and it's catchy, it's fun, but it does give awareness, right? So you will come across that, at some point, if not through your physician or primary care, practitioner, general practitioner, or your physician, you will come through that on social media, and it gets people thinking. Right. And people go, oh, right. OK, it must be stress then, because I've never had this before. I've never experienced this before. I've never had skin breakouts. I don't know why, I'm not interested in a lot of things anymore now. I'm always angry, and so on and so forth. OK, so what I want to talk about now. Right. Remember how we talked about what could, in the past, we're talking about factors that contribute. Okay, I'm going to touch on a few. I'm going to touch on the impact of neglect, poor diet, sleep deprivation, and social isolation. Okay, and that's going to end our talk for today, for the first part in this series. So, looking at this now, on your left, that's the brain of a normal 3-year-old child. Okay. On the right is the brain of a child that's experienced extreme neglect.
Wow.
Look at the significant difference in size.
Right? So when you say social neglect as well, that can affect the child. This pandemic, the kids are not able to have any social interaction with anybody. Do you think they will have this kind of effect on the kids in this way?
Okay, so brain development starts from in the womb. Healthy brain development, getting the right kind of stimulation, getting the right kind of interaction, that all contributes, of course, diet and sleep, right? So if the mom is stressed, that stress can actually affect the baby. So you get premature birth, low birth weight, just from stress alone. We're not talking about moms who abuse, substance abuse issues, right? Yeah. So that directly affects the child. Okay. So then what you get is, so when you talk about extreme neglect, we're talking about situations where the child is in a home and their needs are not met. So their needs are not met for emotional needs are not met, so you're not affectionate with them. Their needs are, social needs are not met. So you're not taking them out. You're not socializing. You're not getting them to meet friends. They're, just in terms of you're neglecting their care. So you're not cleaning them properly. You're not, you don't bother to change their diaper. So it's basically just completely not caring about the child.
Right.
Right, you're not caring what the child eats, you're not caring about what the child does. There's no interaction whatsoever. So a very extreme example of that would be, sort of many years ago, where they, in a Eastern European country, in a Romanian orphanage, they had, obviously a lot of children who were sent there. Some of them already had some form of disability when they were born. So what happened was, there were so many of the babies compared to the ratio of people who could take care of them. And so what happened was these babies were basically neglected. So there was no interaction, no social interaction. When you see a baby and you coo and you go, hello, how are you? Aren't you gorgeous? And you talk to them and there's eye contact and they're smiling and you're holding them, you're cuddling them and all that. These children were basically left in their cribs without any kind of social interaction whatsoever. They were left in dirty diapers. It was urine soaked, and basically no one cared for them and all that. And after a while, what they learned was that at first the children were reaching out through crying, of course. They cry because they're trying to tell you they have needs. Whether they want you to cuddle them, whether they want you to change them, whether they're hungry, whether they're cold, okay? And they tried for a while until eventually they realized no one was coming. And so what happened was they stopped crying. So there was a gentleman who wrote an article on this, and he went, that was the most quiet, orphanage he's ever gone to, despite the fact that there were so many babies lying down in their cribs. He did not hear a peep. So there was no crying, nothing whatsoever, because the babies probably did try to do that at some point and then gave up because no one was coming. And so that could be how their brains would look like. There's no brain stimulation. So the more stimulation you get, sensory, stimulation, intellectual stimulation, social stimulation, you form a lot of neurons in your brains, right? The dendrites, the connections in your brain, and you enrich your brain. So you've heard of the phrase enriching your brain, right? Your intellect and doing things that are intellectually stimulating, because it forms connections. So when you experience bad experiences, it also forms connections. But what we're trying to do is make sure that the connections that are formed are because of positive experiences. Right. Experiences of learning, experiences that help your brain kind of evolve and to be able to do more skills and be able to function as well as it can. So that if you go back to slide 8 and you look at that brain, they actually haven't done anything to the brain, like physically they haven't done anything to the brain, but it is basically just psychological, emotional neglect, right? Just not doing anything, right? So prolonged exposure to trauma, the neural circuits are disrupted. It changes the hippocampus, which is the brain's memory and emotional center. It causes brain shrinkage. And then so because of that, your brain now has problems with memory, learning, behavior, right? And they don't learn to regulate their emotions because they're constantly in a state of stress. They can't relax. It doesn't feel safe, So then what you get is chronic disease, which is physical diseases, and then you get mental health problems. That's neglect alone, right? You're not physically bashing the child's brain, or you're not injecting substances into it. You just neglect a child. That's what happens.
Dr. Nina, I still remember last time there was some people were giving this crying out method for kids, right, so that they can sleep by themselves on their own. What do you think of this crying out method? I just want to share the audience. This crying out method is when you want the kids to learn to sleep independently without you try to soothe them or what, and then they can just learn how to sleep by themselves from the age of 1 year onward. So there were this technique that says crying down method. I tried, but for a while it worked. And after that, we didn't do it because my husband and I also, my husband especially couldn't stand all the cries,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do you think?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So the fact that
Okay.
you said you couldn't stand the cries, that's an interesting point, because babies cry is because they can't talk yet; they're not verbal. A baby cries to indicate something to you, right?
Right.
So they like to be warm, they like to be comfortable, they like to be dry, they like to be well fed, and they like to have enough rest, which is actually a really good state for all of us to try and strive for, right? Okay.
Right.
But a baby is very good at indicating that, simply because their body's going, okay, we need to survive. We can't take care of ourselves yet. So we're going to cry and we're going to give indication. And then that cry is going to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. And then you go, okay, something's wrong. And then I need to attend to it. So the cry is meant to indicate that it's a form of communication. Okay. So I'm going to be very careful, because it's a personal thing that I have an opinion of as well. It's professional.
Yes.
But I can't do, I don't do that as a mother. I know people who have done that and have been able to successfully implement that. I know people who have, and I'm not gonna go into that debate. But if you ask me, it's something that as a mother I disagree with, as a mental health professional I disagree with.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
There's another thing that I kind of disagree with as well. And that is the method of where, let's say a child is in nursery, they're 2 or they're 3 or they're 4, and they've done something that is maybe inappropriate or something wrong that they shouldn't have done. Right now, what then happens is you then, and I've seen this happen, you then actually tell the child you need to go in a corner and you need to think about what you've done wrong. Okay.
Right.
Now, the child is not developmentally equipped to know what's wrong, what's right. We teach them what's wrong, what's right, right? And so this child is just doing, he thinks it's okay to spill a glass of water on on the table, because he thought that I just want to know what happens. I just want to see what happens. So children are naturally very curious. Now he has no idea that, that maybe not do that. You shouldn't do that. If you want to do that, we'll do that in the sink. And then you can see what happens when you pour water down the sink, So you make it into a teachable moment. But what happened is, with one incident that I witnessed was, this was a school observation that I did. And the child was asked to sit in a corner, and he was 3 at the time, and he was asked to think about what he had done wrong. Now, this child has no idea. He has no idea what he did wrong. Okay, no idea at all. But what that also does is that you've picked that child, isolated him from the rest of his friends, put him in a corner, told him to remain seated on that thinking chair, okay, until he's figured out what he's done wrong. Now, if this child has no idea, this child is there sitting, feeling pretty confused, looking at facial expression and going, you're not happy with me, but I don't know why, okay? And then not being able to join in the activities of his friends and stuff, and then may still afterwards not know what he's done wrong. So I have an issue with that on a personal level, and also on a professional level, because that doesn't work. That doesn't work. If you're talking to an adult, sure, they have the mental capacity to think about their actions. In most cases, they do have that mental capacity to think about their actions. They may not like it, but they do have the mental capacity. But you still don't send an adult to a thinking chair. You wouldn't do that, would you? You would actually talk to them. You would actually communicate with them, point out, have a bit of a discussion with them, let them have time to think about it, let them give them an opportunity to respond, and maybe give them an opportunity to go, okay, all right, I get it. I will probably do different next time. I didn't realize that had an impact or effect on you.
Yeah.
But when you do that to a child, what you're doing is you're basically just banishing the child, and this child has no idea what's just happened. So and yeah, and some children are, they naturally are more resilient, and they go, okay, I'm just going to sit here. I wasn't going to do that work anyway. I'm fine. I'm going to continue to sit here and look at everybody do stuff. Okay. Because they all have to do stuff. I don't have to do it. There might be a child who thinks that, but most of the time a child is going to feel really bad, really guilty, really confused. And then what happens is the next time he goes into a classroom, you've now increased his stress level. Because he's going, what if I do something wrong that I don't know, and then I get sent to the thinking chair again? And then what if Mr. Who and Who or Miss Who and Who looks at me and,
So
looks at me and they're angry.
Then they become anxious going to school.
They start becoming anxious. And then, they start not liking school. And then you might see, Mommy, I don't want to go to school today because I have a tummy ache.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You go, oh, maybe you need to go. No, it's a tummy ache. I don't know. And it's a tummy ache. And then, but when they're home, they're fine. And you're going, okay, well, what happened to the tummy ache? So that's a sign of anxiety. So we're looking at, physical signs and then functioning. They're functioning in areas as well. So,
we'll go to the last.
So we'll go to the next slide. So we have 3 slides left. We go to the next one. So this is the effect of sleep deprivation on the brain. So remember how we talked about, it's good to get good sleep. It's sleep is actually very important. Sleep is healthy, and you've realized that if you look at this picture, on the left is sufficient sleep. So the highlighted areas there, the ones with the orange color, means that part is activated. It's working. That your brain is working and it's healthy and it's it's what it should be. Now, if you look at the sleep deprived person, there's less activity going on. So a lot of parts of the brain that's meant to be stimulated, that keeps you awake, that keeps pumping, feel good hormones, that's how it's, that kind of governs your behavior. A lot of that is not lighted up. So there's less activity in the brain. Okay. And so this is from research, proper research, that's, they've shown sleep is one of the greatest predictors of mental illness. Issues around sleep. Yes, issues around sleep. Okay, so in autism, for example, some parents will say, my kids just won't go to sleep, not till like much later in the night. When they do, they wake up in the middle of the night, they play for a bit, and then they go back to sleep, or they never nap, or, I don't feel like they're getting good enough sleep. And then they've realized that through research, they realized that the melatonin, which is produced to help you go to sleep, is actually produced more in the daytime for children with autism than it is at night. So we need it at night because it helps us sleep. It's a natural hormone that's produced by our brains, right?
Right.
But they've realized that in children with autism, there are sleep issues. So even before you diagnose someone, you will actually explore this area of sleep. Is so important. So you will get, so major mental illnesses, they literally in the DSM-5 will list sleep as an issue of a possible symptom.
Wow.
Right? So depression, generalized anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and then when you lose sleep, you're more likely to develop a mental illness.
So does it matter what time we sleep? Is there
So apparently, the reason why there's night and day is because when it starts to get dark, your body starts to produce more melatonin, so it starts to get relaxed. So you might dim down the lights. One of the sleep habits or sleep strategies that we might recommend is going into a routine, no access to electronics, reduce stimulation, reduce the lighting so that it gets a little bit. It simulates nighttime. And then the best is to sleep. So apparently, if you notice how when people don't have enough sleep, they have eye bags under their eyes. Okay, so if they have eye bags under their eyes, it's essentially an indication that the kidneys are not working as well as it should. So the kidneys process all the toxins in your body, gets rid of the toxins in your body. So if you're not getting enough sleep, the kidneys function the best between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. That's when they work their hardest. So if you're not sleeping and if you're sleeping late, you're missing out on that optimal time for when your kidneys are working best. right? So now if your body
So we
can't get
have
rid
to
of
sleep.
substance, yeah.
So
I know
that
we all don't get
means we
that.
have to sleep. Oh my God. That means we have to sleep by 11.
Yeah. Before that, if possible, and then it's good to wake up when the sun comes out, because then you're exposing yourself to bright light. It's telling your body to stop producing the melatonin for a while, and then there is such a thing as bright light therapy for children with autism who have sleeping difficulties. Because it exposes the body to a lot of bright light. I think in Middle Eastern countries, it's hot and you do get a lot of sun, but because it's so hot, people basically stay indoors. So now they're not getting vitamin D because they're not outside. So if you have eye bags, so somebody's asking, if you have eye bags, when you sleep quite a bit and nicely, then you may want to check your kidney function, because that is an indicator. Okay. And also, you may feel like you sleep nicely and you get the good amount of sleep, but then we're also going into the quality of sleep. So you may get the full amount, and you may think, but you may not be fully rested. So that then affects, a lot of things, memory, concentration, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to make sure that I haven't left out anything about sleep. There is a reason why sleep deprivation is a form of torture. Yeah.
Torture? Oh my God.
Yes, there's a reason. You're right. There's a reason why sleep deprivation is a form of torture.
I see. Yes. They don't allow, they make sure they don't sleep, yeah?
Yes.
It's form of
Yes.
torture, yeah.
Yes. Because it really affects your
What?
judgment. Apparently, if you don't have enough,
Yeah. I was just interviewing this very amazing lady yesterday, 24 years old.
Right.
And she was saying she was studying for her SPM. She wanted to score so much. She didn't sleep for 2 days to study for her exams.
Yeah.
And she got hospitalized.
Yeah. No, you can't function because sleep is so important. That's when your body recharges, physiologically as well as mentally. It's actually really healthy for it's good for healthy functioning, that's the reason why a lot of babies will spend most of their time, newborns, sleeping. Right? Because that's so important. And why you then see teenagers, and then they get to, because of kids, and they sleep kind of normal, and then you get to teenagers and you go, okay, you guys are sleeping so much now. But because that, like I said, that's another stage of growth. That's of significant growth. So now then you'll see teenagers sleeping a lot. If there's school holidays, they just sleep in. And I allow my eldest especially to sleep in, and just because he needs to catch up on that amount of sleep because of the significant stage, developmental development that he goes through. Okay, so sleep deprivation, they have found, if you don't get enough sleep, your brain is actually similar to a person who is very drunk.
Oh my God.
Right. So if you don't get enough sleep, so for example in Australia, they have a campaign where they get you to get your 5 minutes of shut eye, 40 winks they call it. Just have a short nap on the side of the road. They have special places for you to park on the highway on the side of the road for you to just really rest and sleep, because if you don't, you could actually cause an accident, because your concentration is affected. Your judgment is affected. Your focus is affected. Your response time is affected, and that's from sleep. That's why sometimes, and I know it's funny, but but I shouldn't be laughing. But you see sometimes toddlers looking a little bit drunk, like they're walking and they're kind of swaying and all that stuff. When they don't have enough sleep, when you're on a flight, you're traveling and you're crossing time zones and all of that, it's temporary, but it can really affect a child, and they just they look drunk, because it actually has the same effect.
Yes. So I wanted to ask a question already. Now I forgot already.
You forgot. What does it have to do with sleep, or how much sleep we have? How quality of sleep?
No, I remember. That's why some countries like Spain, right? They have siesta time. They
That's right.
and they, to that their people can have more productive mind and have a rest in between their work, right?
Yes. So because they've realized at around about that time, there is a dip. There is a dip in your energy level. There is a dip. Sort of just how you function. There's a bit of that dip, and then you sort of sleep, not for too long, but then just enough for you to recharge.
And what the time was around 3 to 5 or something like that, or I can't remember.
Yeah, after lunch, and then before
after
it gets
lunch,
late in the afternoon.
2 to 4 or something like that, right? Because so imagine, would you like to have siesta in Malaysia? That means have a longer work lunch break.
Yeah, like I know everybody doesn't experience it. That's right. But in Qatar, work starts at so my husband would be at the office by 6, but work usually starts at 7. And then for some departments or organizations, work may finish at 2, and they come home and they have a bit of a rest, and then they go out and do their activities. They go out at night and they go do things. They meet friends. They socialize and all of that. But it's kind of a good cycle, really. It's kind of actually a really good cycle. But it's not always possible. I get it. It's not possible to implement it. But just make sure that you're getting enough sleep. If you're getting a good amount of sleep, 7 to 8 hours as an adult, but you're finding that you're waking up, and you're tired and you don't feel rested, then you may want to investigate why. Because it may be that you're not getting good quality sleep. Maybe enough amount of hours, but you're not getting good quality sleep. So you may want to check on that. So it's you investigate things, and usually
what do you mean by quality sleep?
So you could go to sleep for a good amount of time, for the good a healthy duration, which is 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Okay, but when you sleep, you have different brain waves.
Right.
So you have beta waves, delta waves, and all that. And then it's when you kind of, there are times when when you feel you've had, really good rest, your brain goes into a deep state of rest. And then you actually wake up and you feel really refreshed. But the brain needs to go into different levels.
Level states, yeah.
So that's, I'm not going to elaborate too much on that, but yes, you actually need good quality of sleep as well. So sometimes children who may present with behavioral problems, for example, ADHD, we usually ask about sleep, and the parents will say, well, they toss and turn, and then they wake up at night, or they have trouble, they take a long time to fall asleep, they don't want to fall asleep early, and then when it's time to wake up, they can't wake up, and then some of the children, we've realized that they have issues, respiratory issues, so enlarged adenoids, and so or tonsil issues. So what happens is when they're sleeping, they get stuffy noses. You see, when children are sick and they have stuffy noses and stuff, they're cranky, not just because they're sick, but because they can't really sleep properly, because they can't breathe properly. So now they're breathing through their mouths, which means that they are not fully rested, because their sleep is interrupted. They can't go into a deep state of sleep. So then what happens is that, so usually when a parent comes forward and say, I think my child may have behavioral problems, maybe ADHD, before we actually give that diagnosis, we actually really look into sleep. We look at the adenoids, if that's causing a lot of infections, throat infections, a lot of nose, runny nose and blocked noses and stuff. We actually investigate that first, and then we actually try to fix the sleep first to see if that causes a change in behavior, because it may very well be that the sleep is the only cause. And then if we've kind of, maybe you looked into that and we've kind of not fixed it, but eliminated that possibility, then we look at other areas. So diagnosis is gonna usually takes quite a while. It's not just done in a session kind of a thing.
Okay, so now do we go to the last slide, or we?
So we have two more. We're gonna go through this pretty quickly. So the one I have here is effect of poor diet. Remember, we talked about to keep yourself mentally healthy, we're eating nutritious food, we're eating healthy food, but we're also eating food in a healthy at a healthy amount. Right. Okay. So if you look at that slide, the one on the left is normal, and then the one on the right is obese. So you can see that there's a lot less red areas that's lighted up, right? Okay, so when you talk about obesity, So, BMI of more than 30, it is actually associated with a significant increase in lifetime diagnosis of major depression, bipolar, and panic disorder.
Oh.
Yeah. Not to
Oh.
mention the social factors, that's social, social issues that factor in. So they may experience bias. They may experience stigmatization. So people are bullying them. People treat them differently, usually more negatively, and that obviously affects their mental health, right? So they found that it kind of goes in both directions. So people with obesity have a 55%, more than half, increased risk of developing depression over time. And then while people who were depressed had a 58% increased risk of developing obesity.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
So it could go either way.
Yes.
It could go
It
either
actually
way.
goes both ways. So that's why
But
the link.
even though we are not this big size, but we can be
Right.
obese if you have to check what is our BMI. Is that right?
Yeah, but I think a lot of people would disagree in terms of whether BMI is actually a good indicator. There's debate around that, but usually, I think the general rule is that if you have a BMI of more than 30, you are considered obese. But again, like I say, BMI is, I think, weight over your height. I think that's counted in that sense. So if you are a bodybuilder, you might be obese when you're actually not, just because of that ratio of how they calculate BMI. So BMI may not be the way to go. Maybe, what you want to do is you want to check your, the percentage of your fat, visceral fat and all of that. And you actually want to go to a medical professional, check that, and then make sure that you are healthy, because then there's also physical effects of obesity, hypertension, heart disease, all of that kind of comes into play as well. So
I know.
So yeah.
Check this out. I have this
Okay.
that is BMR, fat,
Right. So
visceral.
you keep track. Right. Right. And so if you consult with the right professional, they like what you're doing now, they're going to give you an indication. You're going to monitor it, and then obviously there is a good weight for you to be at, and then you can see the effects of that. Some people go off of hypertension medication. Some people were able to reverse their type 2 diabetes just by being at a healthy weight.
Yeah. So I have that because I have my lifestyle coach who's monitoring, but right now I'm like not really monitoring it, so I have to go back into the routine again.
Yeah. And we kind of do that. We kind of slack off. We slack off a bit, but as long as you go, okay, I need to stop doing that. You need to go kind of get back into that routine, get used to that, make sure it's part of my lifestyle, create good habits and stuff. Then after a while it becomes just part of what you do. But it is good to monitor. You have this, that is self-care. You have to monitor yourself at all times, check on things. But yeah, I know we're pressed for time, so I'm going to just do one last one, which is slide 11.
This one.
Okay. Yes. So if you look at that, this is the effect of social isolation. Again, there's a reason why sleep deprivation is a form of torture, and there is a reason why solitary confinement is also a form of torture. Okay. Because the science behind that is that it causes a lot of this. You're not talking to anyone. You are not having any kind of communication or interaction. Often when you talk to someone, you're getting, a positive interaction from them, which obviously makes you feel good about yourself. You're talking about intellectually stimulating conversations, or even if you're talking about, nonsense stuff, you actually still enjoy having that interaction with them. So that creates a lot of feel-good hormones for you, and you feel better. And when you feel better, you make better judgments about your diet, better judgments about your physical activity, better judgments about pretty much across everything. Okay. Just because you're feeling good, and you from the interaction, right? Just from the interaction, You're feeling good, you're making better judgments and better decisions for yourself. Now, if you are socially isolated, social isolation or loneliness is actually one of the biggest killers in the geriatric population. So older people, when they are actually old, people actually die from loneliness. It's a serious health risk. Okay, so you're getting heart problems, you may experience depression, obviously higher stress, because you're not able to alleviate your stress by interacting with someone or doing some kind of going out there, getting some sun, getting some fresh air. You start having an issue with your memory, and then you're more likely maybe to self-medicate or to abuse drugs, and then it causes significant changes in your brain.
Wow.
So yeah, social isolation. Yeah, so it affects your cognitive thinking, lowers your self-esteem, causes stress, causes leads to depression.
This pandemic, this pandemic
Yeah.
is this pandemic can cause social isolation unless we do something about it actively to not cause that social isolation. Right?
Yes. So if you are fortunate enough to be able to socially reach out and socially interact with others out there, do that by any means possible. Because obviously you have the SOP that you have to keep in line. You have to, places are in lockdown. So if you are able and fortunate enough, then have Zoom calls. Back then my girlfriends and I, we missed each other so much. We just missed talking nonsense with each other that we had a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
And you have to find ways. You have to find ways to create that. Call someone, text people, talk, and like I said, talk silly stuff, talk nonsense stuff. Just enjoy the interaction. It doesn't have to be serious stuff. It doesn't have to be something that you have to go, oh, I learned that from that interaction. No, it's just silly nonsense stuff. But that's the best bit, right? And then people are asking about you, you're asking about them, and make a point to talk to each other again at one point. But if you're able to find ways to connect. So if you can't see them physically, then see them virtually.
Yeah.
Talk
Exactly.
to them.
I think this is the best time for us right now to make connections around the world, everywhere,
Yeah.
virtually. You can make
Sure.
friends from everywhere around the world, and
Sure.
connect with
Sure.
anyone and make new connection, new businesses, new things, and
Right.
because we
Right.
learn
Right.
now is borderless for us, So
That's right.
like the other day, I was talking to someone in India. We're talking about
Yeah.
doing something with possibility. Now I'm talking to you in Qatar,
That's right.
So
That's right.
this is one
So
way of doing it. Yeah.
yes, if you are, in a position where you're able to have access to, technology, and you're able to, as much as you can, make sure that you have that interaction. If you can't, see how your old neighbor is doing, send some food over, send a note, send a picture, whatever that is, just to let them know that they're not alone, right? With children, assist them in connecting with friends. So Sophia's good friend, is now, I think, in Somalia, if I'm not mistaken. So they play together online. I can hear her talking, them talking to each other, there's interacting, but they're doing something together, they make a point to meet up again. Now that the lockdown is, the restrictions have been eased in Qatar, children are able to meet up again, which is great. But if they are not, a lot of places in Australia, a lot of, states are in lockdown. For example, Malaysia is the same. A lot of countries are in, a lot of countries around the world right now are under lockdown. Try to do as much as possible with reaching out to people and interacting.
Okay.
Because it's a big thing.
So I think we have gone a long time today. But I
Yeah,
think
we
because
always do that.
but not only that, because the first half an hour we have a lot of technical problems.
That's
So
true.
thank you so much, Dr. Nina. I hope everyone else really enjoyed today's session. This is
You're
just the
welcome.
first part. We have another second part on how mental health linked to mental illness. The second part will be next week again at 4 o'clock p.m. So if you want to hear and continue, increase your mental health literacy. So
Literacy.
come and watch the
Okay.
show with
Thanks for
Mama Liz.
having me, Liz.
Yeah,
And thank you to
yeah,
the audience.
yeah,
I think you guys were very patient with us.
yeah.
It's
So
just really unfortunate.
you can connect with Dr. Nina Hafetz on her LinkedIn profile as well. Just connect with her in LinkedIn, Nina Hafetz. And with me, we can just follow for our future, my future shows on Friday nights. It's at 10 p.m. and Saturday at 4 p.m. Okay, so see you guys again. Thank you again for joining us at MamaLiez.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.